Welcome to Be Less Stupid. I'm your host, Jon Hotchkiss. I'm here in downtown Las Vegas for an event featuring the Vice President, Joe Biden, who, as you well know, has dropped nearly 11 points since he got into the race for the presidency. Plus, there's all that trouble he's got with the Ukraine, the whistleblower, and President Trump. We're expecting some interesting things to happen here today. This is the Vice President's first public appearance since the brouhaha. For Be Less Stupid, I'm the host, Jon Hotchkiss. Stick around.
In the meantime, my job, our job, is to make sure, above all else, we beat Donald Trump.
Welcome to Be Less Stupid. I'm your host, Jon Hotchkiss. Let's get right to it. Joe Biden remains the front runner among the Democrats in the race to kick Trump's ass on November 3rd, 2020. This despite Trump and Rudy's Ukrainian crime spree.
This is not about me. This is about the American people. This is about...
Now look, I am not specifically supporting Joe Biden. In fact, I'm leaning towards Bernie or Elizabeth Warren. However, Joe Biden has raised more money than other Democrats. Biden has more endorsements. And in every poll since May, more Americans say that they will vote for Joe Biden than any other Democrat. Look, and here's why Trump keeps making these outrageous allegations against Joe and his son. Because in 70 polls in a row, when Americans are asked who they prefer, Donald Trump or Joe Biden, Biden wins by 4 or 5 points every time. And look, that is great news. However, it is not the whole story. Although Joe leads in the polls, almost no one is fired up for him. At Bernie rallies, you can hear crowds chanting, "Bernie, Bernie," right? Meanwhile, at Biden events, if anyone claps, half the crowd gets a flashback to the day they stormed the beaches at Normandy. Look, there is no better example of America's passionless love affair for the former Veep than this. Joe Biden has not held a single large-scale rally since the day he announced his candidacy. And even on that day, the crowd was so small, when the rally was over, everyone went home in the same Uber. Look, while Warren and Sanders regularly hold big rallies with thousands of people, Joe speaks mostly to small groups, 250 people max, and the events are not raucous. I spoke to one guy who said, quote, "The most that Joe does is get tepid under the collar." Also concerning is the frequency of Biden's events. His opponents hold multiple events in a day, and yet Joe Biden has many days where he has no public events at all. So the question that Democrats are asking is this: why does an experienced politician do so few public events, and why are they so small?
During these chaotic times, with America's fate uncertain, independent liberal voices have never been more vital. And no one on YouTube gets you closer to the facts, closer to the action, closer to the Democratic candidates. Subscribe now to Be Less Stupid.
There are some people that say Biden's got a relaxed schedule because Joe is 78 years old. There are others who say that he's prone to make weird verbal gaffes. There are others who say that he's just not dynamic and that they wish he'd get fired up and make a full-throated speech that ignites the soul of the Democratic Party. So look, let's take a look at these allegations one at a time. Despite a limited schedule, Biden still leads in the polls. However, he has dropped a few points since he got into the race. Joe also has the most name recognition, so he gets tons of free media coverage whenever he does in fact speak. So he reaches voters while they're watching TV at home instead of in person. And look, Joe Biden doesn't need to introduce himself to large crowds of voters the way Kamala Harris or, say, Pete Buttigieg do. Joe Biden is a known quantity. People like and trust him. Plus, his team knows that there is a portion of the electorate that is tired of the circus and that they would prefer someone who will bring back sanity to Washington. Then there's this. Running for president is a marathon and not a sprint. Biden knows this and is conserving his energy for the real battle when he's the nominee and running against Donald Trump. Now look, let's talk about Joe's age. He is 78. and if elected, he'll be the oldest president to be inaugurated. That said, I would like to offer you my personal impression, having seen him in person and gotten my picture taken with him just a few days ago in Las Vegas. His speech was about 20 or 25 minutes, a little bit short. However, it was also like 90 degrees outside, and most of the crowd had to eat dinner by 4:30.
That the job is about a lot more than a paycheck. A job is about your dignity. It's about your place in the community. It's about respect. It's about being able to look your child in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay. It's not a number, it's a value set.
And while the speech was in fact short, Joe spent nearly 30 minutes right after the speech mobbed by voters. Joe paid special attention to people in wheelchairs or to people who had devices that helped them breathe. Joe took tons of photos. He shook hands. People hugged him and he hugged people. I saw a retired U.S. soldier tell him that he was having trouble getting medical attention at the VA. Joe told the man to give him his phone number, that he'd get in touch and he'd help him straighten it out.
Information and we'll follow up.
Okay. Give me your phone number.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Nice to see you again. How are you?
As I watched Joe Biden turn from one admirer to the next, he smiled the whole time. He was fully engaged. In fact, I'd say he was more dynamic then than he was during the speech. And it wasn't an act. This guy was in his element. So look, if anyone tells you that Joe Biden doesn't have the stamina or isn't electable because he's 78, you can tell them this. Jon Hotchkiss saw him up close. Jon Hotchkiss is a very good judge of people. Jon Hotchkiss says that Joe has the stamina to be president and that Jon Hotchkiss is never wrong. Just ask his wife. She says it all the time. It must be so hard being right all the time.
You know, as we meet here today, we have ample evidence clearly laid out by how of the serious and sustained threat that Donald Trump poses to our democracy.
Look, and then there are those who say that Joe has a relaxed schedule because his team is protecting him from making a bunch of verbal gaffes. Look, does Joe sometimes mix things up? Does he get facts wrong? Yes, he does. And if gentle, harmless flubs worry you, wait till I tell you about the guy who thinks that Mexicans are rapists and that some Nazis are good people. And finally, let's talk about the issue of voter enthusiasm. If you would, I would like you to consider this. Suppose a chocolate cupcake held a rally in your town to remind you how wonderful chocolate cupcakes are. There's no way you'd go, right? You already know how great chocolate cupcakes are. On the other hand, if someone were to offer you a dessert tray with a bunch of options, say a blueberry scone, a fruit tart, some kind of pistachio parfait, right? And there's also chocolate cupcakes, nearly everyone takes a cupcake. It's a known quantity, right? No, it's going to satisfy you. You are not making a bad choice if you pick cupcakes. Joe Biden is a chocolate cupcake. Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, and Pete Buttigieg, and even Bernie to some extent, they're cranberry scones or banana nut muffins. Look, they're not bad. They might even be delicious, but they're an acquired taste. And not everyone is going to like them. Okay, that is it for this episode of Be Less Stupid. And before I tell you where you can get a Be Less Stupid t-shirt, I would like to ask you for a very small favor. Because now YouTube makes it harder for people to find political videos made by independent journalists like me, because they have some kind of fear of fake news. So could you please do me a favor and share this video on social media and tell your friends to subscribe? Thanks so much. Oh, and you can also demonstrate your solidarity with other liberal Democrats who value liberty, equality, and a woman's right to choose by getting a Be Less Stupid t-shirt. Go to our website and click the shop button on the menu bar. That's it. Thank you for watching. For Be Less Stupid, I'm the host, Jon Hotchkiss. Joe Biden is delicious.